What would you say has been the most impactful moment in your life? Just one moment.
Honestly, I would say when I lost my legs in the first place. I mean, that impacted my life in every way. It completely changed my life. It took me in a total different direction than I ever could have imagined. And it opened up doors that I never could have imagined, especially when I lost my legs. So, I thought I knew where my life was going when I was 19 and just I was a massage therapist. My plan was to travel the world and just be a massage therapist and help people. And I wanted to snowboard, and I snowboarded for fun, although I was definitely like competitive in my heart. I loved snowboarding and I wanted to be a professional snowboarder, but I also just wanted to travel the world, help people, and that's what I was doing. So I thought I knew that where my life was going. And then all of a sudden, it changed overnight. And, I contracted bacterial meningitis. We have no idea how I got it. I fought for my life in the hospital. I ended up losing my legs, my spleen, the hearing in my left ear, my kidneys, pretty much all overnight. My life changed forever. I fought for my life in the hospital. And all of a sudden, my life was completely different. I walked into the hospital and now I was being wheeled out of the hospital in a wheelchair, no legs, 83 pounds, truly had no idea what my life was going to look like. And I'm just really happy that I didn't give up on myself at that time, that I did have things to lean on that gave me strength to move forward. I think a lot of times people think that you're just resilient or you're not, but I think we have things, if we're reminded that we have things to lean on, that helps us find strength around us. Like we think sometimes it just comes from within, but sometimes it comes from outside of us, right? So at that time, I really leaned on gratitude for my family, that I had a second chance at life. I had my family by my side. I had so much support. I thought, if nothing else, if I don't have my legs, I don't have my job, I don't have anything else, I at least have my family by my side. Like that right there just gave me some resilience to move forward. And
Mhm.
also, is at those times, like the darkest days of my life where I thought about my life the most, where it really brought me to a place of like what's most meaningful for me, how do I want to live my life now? And so I would allow myself to kind of visualize what's my ideal life now that I don't have legs. What's my ideal life? What does that look like? I didn't want to be defined by everybody else's beliefs on what I could do. Like, oh, you have a disability now, so your life is supposed to be over, supposed to be horrible, or somehow less than what it was supposed to be before. People would say to me, I'm so sorry you lost your legs, but I hated that. Because I thought, well, why does this have to be a bad thing? Like maybe I can do something with this. And so I think it's those dark days that you get closer to yourself, you get closer to what's meaningful for you, and you get closer to your purpose. And so losing my legs really sent me in a direction that, like a life of meaning and a life of purpose and a life of possibility. And I don't think I would have ever figured that out within myself of just how far I could go in my life had I have not lost my legs.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love so my sport like impactful thing here is like, why snowboarding? Yes, you loved it, but why in that moment did that stand out as the thing that you really wanted to do? Because I've heard you say that a lot. Like, I must get back on the snowboard and I'm gonna find a way. And like what you haven't said for everybody listening, Amy is an absolute pioneer in bilateral amputee snowboarding. Like you got this category, this classification of snowboarding into the Paralympic Games. And it's just snowboarding, right? Like it's just a fun, cool way to get down a mountain. And like I just throw a javelin, but it's one of the most important things in my life. Like it's sport is so
Right.
arbitrary and unlocks such a cool like zest for life, personal mission, like real intimate with yourself, like why am I doing this feeling? And I just think it's really interesting that in a dire time, you would gravitate towards something that's like sort of lighthearted. Like, why is
Yeah.
this that important in your life? And what else does it unlock for you? Yeah.
Probably because it is lighthearted and it just felt good because of that. I mean, I grew up in Vegas, not exactly where you would expect a competitive snowboarder to
Snowboarder.
come from, but we had ski resorts outside of Vegas and I grew up skiing. I was never very good at it. Started snowboarding when I was 15, absolutely fell in love with it. I knew that it was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life somehow. I really found myself in snowboarding. My sister was a cheerleader. She was like the head cheerleader in high school. She had long blonde hair. She was like prom queen and, homecoming queen and, all these kind of accolades in high school. And for the longest time, I was just Crystal Purdy's little sister. Like I didn't do those things that my sister did. And so I didn't really know who I was. I tried out for cheerleading actually, and I didn't make it. And I think I tried out for the dance team and I didn't make that either. So I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I fit. But then a group of these artists, I knew I was very artistic. So I had all these art classes in school, and a group of friends who were in my art class were also skateboarders and snowboarders. And they invited me snowboarding one day, and I got it immediately. Like I picked it up really fast. By the end of the day, I was making carves with them, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the community, like just being outside and playing. Snowboarding is so fun. It's literally just playing in the snow.
Yes.
And there's no rules. There's no, like, you can come up with a little trick, and that's what we would do. We would go up to the mountains after school and build these little jumps in the trees and, try to do 180s and try to do something else and then get up and do it again. And we just did it for fun. And that's really what I loved about it. It was like the community part, moving my body, being in nature, and also the creative side of just like there's no rules, you can do whatever you want, and it was just play.
Mhm.
And I was incredibly passionate about it. I mean, I had done a few little competitions in high school just for fun, but it wasn't anything serious at all. Would have never believed that I was like a competitive athlete in my heart. And it really wasn't until I lost my legs that, well, first of all, when I did lose my legs, all I cared about was getting involved in snowboarding again because I loved it so much. I truly, like, that's where my friends were at. And I thought this was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So, um, even in like all the medical records at the hospital, like my mom's kept all these she's got like a library of medical records from when I
All
was
the
in the
moms do. I love it. Yeah.
hospital. But all the doctor notes are like, patients asking if she can snowboard again. And, we're not sure. And it was like every day, like I would ask the doctor, do you think I could snowboard again? Do you think there's prosthetics for snowboarding? As soon as I met my leg maker, my prosthetist, I'm like, can I snowboard on prosthetics? And what everybody would say is, we don't know. We don't know. We haven't seen it with two prosthetic legs. And I don't even know if they saw it with one prosthetic leg at that time. So,
Mhm.
I remember just thinking to myself, though, maybe nobody has really seen this because there hasn't been somebody passionate enough to figure it out. Like, I knew that it was going to take some effort to figure out how to do this on prosthetic legs. But I also knew that I loved it enough that I had the passion to figure it out. And so I just went on a mission to do that. I made a goal that year, the year that I lost my legs, that I was going to snowboard because I hadn't missed a year of snowboarding before and I didn't want to miss that year. And I did it. I did it that year. And I failed horribly. Like my ankles didn't move. My legs totally came off. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt normal. I couldn't feel my feet on the ground. And I did get defeated for a minute, literally. Like I was like sitting there without my legs after they
Yeah.
came off.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is impossible. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this, you know? But then I immediately thought to myself, wait a second. Like, Amy, if you can figure out a way to keep your legs attached, if you can figure out a way to get your ankles to move the way that you need them to, then maybe you actually can do this again. And I'm so happy that I had that little just reframe. And that's what sport is about, right? It's not until you're kind of challenged that you learn how to do things like that. That like it's such a mindset game. And just even at that level, like, I was just trying to get on a snowboard again with prosthetic legs and everything went horribly. But at the same time, there's this little like mindset shift of like, well, hold on, like look at this in a little bit of a different way, and maybe you can do this if you just, take one little step at a time and start breaking it down and seeing what you need to do. And so
Mhm.
really, that then led to everything else, which was, starting our organization, Adaptive Action Sports, and then helping to get snowboarding into the Paralympic Games in the first place. And yeah, representing my class in the games. And, um, you just never know where like that passion, whatever it is, can take you. And I really believe that your passions are attached to your purpose,
Mhm.
that somehow that feeling that makes you feel alive, that that there's a reason it's there and there's something that you can do with it. And a lot of times what you can do with it is inspire other people.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what I was thinking is like, so I retired in 2022, but I didn't officially retire. And then I came back in 2024 and I was like, what if I just do this on my own terms, train
Hmm.
less, love it more, trust myself more, and just like enjoy this process?
Yes, I
And I
love that.
always had, thank you. And I always had, but like that was the only goal is like, I just missed this part of my life. Like, what if I could just have fun for like two more meets? Like, we'll see what happens. And I got so close to a fifth Olympic team and it was so much fun, but it was like also the most fun to prove to myself that like the payoff wasn't the goal. Like, I just loved every day in training and I got, this far away from a fifth Olympic team, but I was totally fine and totally at peace, just like I had always told myself that I was, to not go to Paris. And the combination of your life that like that experiment for me was just say to people, what do you love? Do it. The
Yeah.
end. Like it doesn't really matter. Like if it's the weirdest thing in the world, like the like skip it from the 90s. Like what if you love that, do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's
Right.
no problem with that. Like just have a great time in life and whatever relationships come of that course of action are where you're supposed to be and the places like that you're supposed to connect with the universe and all of those things. So the combination for you of like massage therapy, like you want to travel the world and help people, snowboarding, losing your legs, then your 2018 story about being like on the road in the qualification process for Pyeongchang and like meeting that little girl in Italy is just the combination of all of those things. And that's like exactly your point. Follow your dreams. Yeah.
It exactly. I felt the exact same way going into my second Paralympic Games. I just wanted to enjoy the experience and enjoy the moment and be just excited to show up every day. And going into the 2014 Paralympics, I felt so much pressure because it was like all of a sudden we were in the Paralympic Games. All of a sudden snowboarding was in the Paralympic Games. So we really didn't have that much time to prepare to be our best. So I felt a lot of pressure. I also at that point was kind of the face of the sport. I was on cereal boxes and billboards and commercials, and yet I was still kind of internally struggling, trying to be my best and not quite feeling like I was good enough to be on all these billboards and stuff. And so I felt a lot of pressure going into the first games. But then the second games, I just wanted to enjoy the whole experience and enjoy the ride. And I'm telling you, I had so much fun. It wouldn't have even mattered if I medaled or not. But I know I medaled because I was having so much fun, because I
Right.
was able to be, calm and enjoy the experience, enjoy the moment. I brought my family with me. My husband was with me throughout the whole 2 years kind of leading up to it, which was awesome to have him at World Cups and stuff as well. And so yeah, it was just an enjoyable experience and that meant so much. But there was a time going back into the second Paralympic Games where I was really questioning if I was going to do it again because after the first Paralympics, I did Dancing with the Stars and then I did a speaking tour with Oprah and then I wrote a book and then I was speaking all over the place and really I had this thriving and busy career outside of sport. And then I decided to go back and just see if I wanted to do my second Paralympics. And that was going to be Pyeongchang. And I went in to the World Cup really like the underdog at this point because everybody else had been training for the last year and a half and I had taken it off. and all of the athletes were doing so good, and I was struggling. I was like, my feet weren't set up right, and I was just, I went from kind of medaling and being up here to being at the bottom and having to work my way up a bit. And I remember just being in Italy at this World Cup race, and I was standing in the start gates, and the course was icy, and it was really scary and sketchy. And I'd pull out of the gates, and I'd hit these bumps, and I'd fall, and my ankles weren't set up right, and I was super, super frustrated. And I was also scared because it was super icy and steep, and I was kind of standing in the start gates, like, why am I doing this? Why am I even here? I don't even have to be here. I just wanted to like give up. Like, I don't even have to be here. I have a job outside of this. And I ended up going back to my room that night. We were staying in this little village. I ended up going back to my room that night. I remember just sitting in the bathtub, like crying and tired and just like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And I thought to myself, okay, if I don't do better tomorrow, that's it. I'm just gonna walk away. Like I've done what I can with the sport. I've already won a medal. Like I don't need to be here. Well, as I was going to bed that night, my phone rang, and when I answered it, it was like 11 o'clock at night. It was the front desk, and they said that somebody was downstairs to see me. And I thought, who would that be? It must be my coach or something. And so I put my pajamas on. I went downstairs, and as I was walking around the corner, I saw this young girl standing there with two prosthetic legs and a handful of other people. And there was a translator there, and he said, when we found out that you were here in this village, we piled in the car, we drove 4 hours, we knocked down every door in this village until we found you. And all we want to know is, it makes it
Yeah.
emotional.
Hmm.
But he said, all we want to know is how do you snowboard on two prosthetic legs so that she can do it as well. And I sat down, and it was her and it was this gal, Maria, and her parents, and I think her grandparents were there, her translator, maybe even her physical therapist and prosthetist were there. So I sat down with them, and I ran upstairs, grabbed my legs, and showed them exactly how my legs worked, how I set them up, how they need to set her legs up. And it was so amazing. And when I walked away that night, I thought to myself, and here now it's probably like midnight and I have a race in the
Hmm.
morning. But man, it was just, I would never take that back because I walked away from that conversation, and I thought to myself immediately, I thought, that's why. That's why I'm here. I'm sitting here questioning, why am I doing this? Why am I showing up? Why am I trying so hard when I'm not doing good? This is why.
Hmm.
Because it's not about the medals and it's not about the outcome, like you said. It's about the process, and it's about also the process of helping other people as well. Like by me showing up and showing what the possibilities are, it helped her believe what the possibilities are in her life as well. And there's nothing more fulfilling than that. Like that is why. And I'm telling you, from that point forward, it was like a weight was lifted off of me. I did not care if I won, if I lost, if I had a hard day. I never once again questioned in my training, why am I doing this? Why am I showing up? I knew exactly why I was doing it. So I always say that when you know your why, then you'll know your way. Because when you know what's driving you, then you'll always figure it out. But if you don't know that drive, if you haven't found it, or you just don't, yeah, like if you don't know why you're getting up in the morning to go after these dreams that you're doing, if it doesn't have enough of a meaning to you, then you're not going to do it. But as soon as you know what that why is, then the way kind of unfolds and seems to unfold a little bit easier for you as well.
For sure. Could not agree more. I To fast way forward into your Bounce Forward book, 30 minutes into our book club, we're going to talk about the actual book. The solving of problems, creating happiness, like that being one of your tools to like really know that like this hasn't been perfect and therefore it's better, because other people can see that example and relate to you in a way that just makes the experience so much richer. We had a world championships on American soil for the first time ever in 2022. It was my last one. It's in Oregon. I'm from Washington State, so I'm right there. But Oregon is one of the few states in the US that has the javelin at the high school level. And so this story about this little girl in Italy made me think of this experience of like showing up to an American track meet and having high school girls like with signs for me about the javelin. Like that is not a thing that ever occurred. And it was so meaningful and special. And then I medaled for the
Ah,
only time in my entire career at my
that's
sixth
awesome.
World
Isn't that
Championship.
amazing? It's like because it just you understand it at that moment. You understand it allows you to go, oh my gosh, it's so much bigger than just me.
Yeah.
And takes the pressure off that we put on ourselves as athletes,
Yeah.
that somehow our worth is in our um, performance, but it's
Yeah.
really not. It's really in the fact that we just continue to show up, and that's enough, and
Mhm.
that inspires other people as well. I love
For
that.
sure. And the most heartbreaking messages that I get are from girls who tear their ACLs as javelin throwers. And I'm like, I'm here. I got this. Like, I wish you weren't in this club, but we're in this club together. So let's talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
you can do this. And that's just exactly what it's all about. Like, there's that whole as a woman athlete thing, like, do it for the little girl who fell in love with the sport. And in that moment, like I wasn't even my own little girl. I was that little girl in the stands, like coming down the runway at World Championships, that like I lost connection. And that's kind of like my beginnings to your book with that beginning story, with the origin story of why I was an athlete. And to have just a tangible example of somebody that wants the same experience to literally become that person it feels like you do in the moment. So the pressure goes away because all of a sudden you're like, well, now I'm not bringing all of my baggage into this experience. I am just seeing it with fresh eyes because this person had the bravery to come and say, like, I am so excited to see you perform. Teach me
Yeah.
your ways. Like, I can't believe the paves that the paths that you have paved.
I did want to say I love that you brought up the chapter in my book about happiness because that whole chapter is about the process, right? And that was an interesting kind of thing, I guess, for me to experience within myself was so I just so that the listeners here kind of get a little bit of a background. So I severely injured my leg 7 years ago. This is after, becoming a Paralympic athlete and after winning medals and Dancing with the Stars and all that stuff. But I severely injured it when I injured my popliteal and femoral artery and completely damaged it. Like the whole arterial system of my left leg shut down. And I was going through all these surgeries, 10 surgeries, all during COVID, trying to save my leg. And I actually really spent probably 2 years in a wheelchair or crutches because I would be on like one prosthetic leg and again like constantly recovering from these surgeries and stuff. I was in a lot of pain. And there was a day when I was in the kitchen, I was pouring myself a cup of coffee. I was sitting in my wheelchair and I all of a sudden realized that I was happy. And it like took me aback because I thought, why am I happy? Like all of a sudden, why am I feeling happy? Like nothing's changed. I'm not walking. I'm not healed. I'm not, there's no like positive outcome that's happened here. So why am I happy? And I really thought about it for a minute and I realized I was happy because I was taking action and problem solving. I was trying to figure out how to heal myself by biohacking. And when I say heal myself, like I needed more blood vessels to grow in my leg. I had to figure out a way to do that. I was reading all these like research papers. I was also doing hot and cold therapy. I was doing all this kind of biohacking stuff because, at this point, my doctors were like, I don't know. I mean, this might be the best that it gets, but my leg, the blood flow in my leg wasn't good enough to wear a prosthetic, and it just wasn't good enough for me. There was just no way. And I thought, well,
Mhm.
then I can't be in a prosthetic. So at that point, it was like, do I lose my leg above the knee? Like, I had to, at that point, kind of take it upon myself to figure out what to do for my body and my leg. And so I was just every day like digging in, having conversations with different specialists, reading research papers with like a dictionary so I could try to understand what these research papers would say. And I realized it was the action of trying to get the outcome that was making me happy, not the actual outcome, because the outcome had not even happened yet. And so I wrote, yeah, a whole chapter about it, but it makes me think about sport and everything in life that our happiness, we think that it's when we reach the goal. We think it's when we're on the podium and we get the medal. But really, that's so fleeting. There might be a moment of just like being proud and relief and excitement, like accomplishment. But really, the fulfillment comes from the journey. It comes from that process. And you'll never get there to the outcome if you don't fall in love with the process.
Hmm.
And that's what I've learned as an athlete as well, and that's what I'm hearing from you as well.
Yeah.
It's falling in love with the process. So you just can't be like outcome focused, or you will never get there. You won't be happy trying to get there. You really have to be process focused, and
Hmm.
then the outcome's more likely to happen, hopefully in the way you want it to. But if it doesn't, you're still totally fulfilled and happy.
Yeah, because you've celebrated the process throughout the
Right.
process. I love that so much. Another chapter, and we're not going to get to all of them. So I want to say to everybody, if you have not read this book yet, I looked at the table of contents and I was like, 21 tools. That seems like so much. And then it's just so digestible, so impactful, like so applicable in all of the stories that you tell and all of the like practical ways that you can apply the lessons that you've learned to your life. So I just highly, highly recommend it. Especially the gratitude chapter for me last week. I was like, yeah, I do already do that without consciously doing it. So let me lean into that experience like in the morning. And process, the quote that I really loved was distraction exhausts you. And I'm not going to say it exactly right, but focus like brings you energy. And I
Yeah.
think when I think about process and I think about being at practice and solving a problem, or now in retirement, like being at work and really like being kind of stuck in the brain space that's hard but worth pushing through to solve a problem, it really is like staying in that moment, staying in that frustration, like staying in that working through what the issue is that like brings you out the other side into happiness. And like if you distract yourself in that moment, you don't get the happiness. Like you got to stay in
Right.
it. And that is what the process is. Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it's harder for us to in real life, like for me after sport, throwing the javelin for 20 years and starting at 15 years old, we started our sports at the same age, which is really fun. The application to the rest of life is what's really hard. And that's true for like many, many, many athletes who started their sport as a young kid, and truly love it, to see the payoff of staying in that frustration and then coming out the other side as like the same thing as figuring out a technical cue can just take a while. So I'm getting there, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like everything I've learned about life and the job that I do when it comes to speaking on stages or whatever, even writing this book, I learned from sport because sport is all about resilience. It's all about perseverance. It's all about finding the grit to continue forward. All those things are what you have to apply to every part of your life to be able to succeed. So once you've done it as an athlete, it's a little bit easier to do in real life. But there's also things that you don't get in real life that you
Yeah.
get from sport that is it's just that's what makes you miss it when you retire, I think, is gosh, I miss this just like hunger and adrenaline and drive and like I said, like obsession of figuring something out and then doing it and just the little wins. It's just those little wins along the way. And having something that just drives you so much that you'll wake up at 4 in the morning and train for hours and it's kind of your whole life. I mean, there's nothing like that. You go into the real world and it's like there's nobody telling you you have to get up in the morning to go to the gym or you don't and that's why I think it's so important to find your why. Like it's something that we all have to kind of go back to at times because it's like, okay, I even have to do it at times too when I'm like let's say I'm like sleeping in too much, I'm too lazy in the morning, I might take a bath and have coffee and like, okay, that's fine sometimes, but like if I start to get just a little bit too lax, I'm like, okay, I've clearly lost what is driving me to like get out, go work out or show up or whatever it may be. And so we all have to kind of remind ourselves like what is the driving force here? But you definitely don't get the same level of that energy and like intensity that you get with sport. And
Mhm.
that's for me at least, that's what I miss about, that's what's hard about being retired. I miss that inner like fire.
I agree totally. The the mastery of a thing is not mastery of the thing, it's mastery of yourself. But when you're in that thing, it's just so much easier once you've practiced it. Like you get so far down the road that you're like, this is what I can rely on. This is where I know exactly who I
Yeah.
am. And I actually have, I know we have like, especially as women, a lot of conversations about identity as an athlete and wrapping up like your own self-worth in that. But mostly that is like when people are talking about results, right? And I have no problem identifying as a javelin thrower because of what I know that means to me in terms of the detail of technique, like the
Yeah.
solo pursuit, like on a runway in the middle of a field by myself. Like I love being that person and I always will. And that's the piece that's like hard to walk away from is just the
Right.
puzzle of it for sure.
Yeah, because you
So
identify so much with it.
yeah, and that's okay. Like I think if you can really parse out what the details of that identity are, that's what you can take with you into the future and remember that like it's not quite the same and that's also fine. I keep
Yeah, and
waiting for the next thing. Yeah.
when I think about myself too, because I had that identity challenge as well, because I'm like, even a couple years ago where I'm like, okay, I'm not a well, I'll always be a Paralympic athlete, of course, but I'm not currently competing. But even just thinking of myself like, I'm a trailblazer of Paralympic snowboarding. Like I will always be that. I don't have to
Yeah.
be a Paralympic snowboarder right now, but I always have that. So I think, that connection is so important because it just being an athlete builds you into who you are. So you don't just lose the title because you're not doing it anymore, or
It's
you're
like
not
part of
like
you. Yeah,
training to do it every day. Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely. Okay, so the book.
The book.
I want to I want to and we've like definitely touched on major themes, but some of my big ones too are belief, full commitment, to your goal and your plan, and your connection to fellow humans, plus like nature. So in the chat, I would love for people to talk about like a transformative nature experience. That's really what I want like Amy to see from participants because those pieces of your book were so meaningful to me, especially like this past fall in Colorado was like the most gorgeous leaves I have ever seen. We were on the western slope on Grand Mesa and it was just like it was absolutely incredible. It's incredible every year, but it was like on another level this year. So when I read those pieces of your book, I was really excited. And there are a couple of questions that I will definitely get to in the chat, but everyone here, if you can share as we're talking, like your transformative, peaceful nature experience, we would both love to see it because we're both Colorado Mountain girlies for sure. But to
Yeah.
kind of start out, like you really dive into the vascular injury, like knowing eventually how that happened because of the fit of your original prosthetic, even though like you wouldn't have known at the time, you did everything you could, like your prosthetist did everything they could. Like this is just one of those things that unfortunately
Yeah.
happens. But so quickly, I was struck by your network to people, like the way that even in absolute crisis, you're reaching out to get input and be supported by your family and all of those things. So where does that come from? Like family for sure is part of it. You talked about that in losing your legs, but it just seems to me like you are a master at knowing where to go or just not being afraid to try going places to get the answers and support that you need.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I feel like I could be even better at at relationships. I tend to just like do my job and I get so focused, but we all do, right? We get so focused in our own lives. And it's just funny that you bring this up because it's actually a goal of mine this year to be even more like connected to my relationships
Uh-huh.
because it is so important. I think I do look back and I realize I really have gotten to where I'm at, whether it's through injury, whether it's even sport, whether it's speaking or business, whatever it may be, through networking, but I would have never really thought that I was like a networker. But when I look at my network, I think, oh my gosh, I feel like it's pretty amazing. Like I know so many people and I've connected with so many people, but I think a lot of that comes from self-advocacy, which I talk about in chapter 3 of the book. Which is not like the sexiest thing to talk about. It's funny, like when I post about self-advocacy on social, it's like nobody really, responds to that. But if you think about how important it is to show up for yourself, like nobody even knows you're out there unless you're showing up knocking down doors. Like nobody even knows what you're doing or what your dreams are. Everybody's focused on their own dreams and goals. And so you really have to show up for yourself. And especially in moments where you need support. So when I injured my leg, I was told that there was nothing else that could be done. I may walk to the mailbox and that's it comfortably. And I thought, there's just no way. I just went from snowboarding 6 hours a day, Dancing with the Stars, all this stuff, to like, I may be able to put on my prosthetic and just walk to the mailbox and that's it. I was not okay with that. And so I think the drive of, I know I deserve to live a good life. We all do. I also know that nobody cares about you or your life as much as you do. Like, it's easy for a doctor to say, well, this is as good as it gets for you. Well, no, that's not as good as it gets for me. And so I needed to be the one to figure out other ways to get through this and find support. And I did. I mean, I reached out to everybody I knew for support. I reached out to Oprah. I reached out to Dr. Oz, who I met at a speaking event, who then got me in touch with another doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. We were sending my mom was like faxing all these, medical records back and forth to different doctors. I got in touch with the doctor who helped with the Boston bombing survivors when they lost their legs because there was a lot of vascular issues there.
Mhm.
Like all of a sudden, I was just making phone calls and trying to figure out things. And someone lined up a private jet that could maybe take me to UCLA and because I couldn't get on a regular airplane because I had this vascular thing going on. There was all this stuff that really did like come together. I didn't end up doing that. I didn't end up going to UCLA, but I just immediately went into, I got to save myself because nobody is going to save me. And that also made me realize who's out there, oh, I do know people who know people who know people who know people. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that we continue to show up for ourselves and we're reminded. It sounds harsh, but it's true. Even an expert, they only know what they know. They know
Mhm.
their little bit of what they know, and that is it. Going through this, I worked with, vascular surgeons. They only know surgery. They're amazing. I had a wonderful vascular surgeon, but he only knew how to fix things, not how to prevent things, not how to heal things on the other side, but just fix things. So you just start to realize that even specialists are only specialists in like what they know. And so
Mhm.
you have to be the specialist of your own life, what's important to you, and show up for yourself. And that's how you figure things out. And you can apply that to business and life and anything else that you're going after is if you believe you can do something or you want to, maybe you don't even know if you can get through it, but or get to your goal, but you deserve more, you want more, whatever that is, then you really have to be the one to knock down doors and go after it.
Yeah. I think of it as you're in charge of the in between. You can get the destination or you can like receive the compass, but you still have to follow the compass and no one else is gonna like take that course but you.
Right.
So those like consistency moments in between like the big phone calls to get the answer is like you're the one in charge of that. And I have like a version of nihilism about sport that like nothing matters in the world. So what
Right.
do you care about? That's what matters. Like
Yeah.
that's your guiding star. That's your North Star, your purpose. And that's exactly what it is. Like you could make the phone call and then sit on the couch, or you're going to make the phone call and then like do the little exercises and do the contrast and all of that stuff to
Yeah.
make yourself better. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. And, and that's what this book is. So it's 21 tools. And what I realized is all these tools are things that helped me survive my hardest days, but also helped me reach my greatest days. So, like
Mhm.
I just said, like self-advocacy, and that helped me get through those hard medical days, right? But then at the same time, it's helped me in every other part of my life because I've knocked down doors to get on stages. I've knocked down doors to, to when it came to even getting snowboarding into the Paralympic Games, or, you can apply each one of these tools to moments of survival as well as, hey, I want to get further in my life. Like what kind
Mhm.
of what can I do to help me reach the goals that I have in my life? And that's what the tools are there for as well.
Absolutely. I love that. I really loved your description of vulnerability becoming strength with Daniel. And I think like even making the phone call, right, in a networking way is it's a show of vulnerability to say like I need help. And I know you've been together for a long time. You founded Adaptive Action Sports together, and that was in 2005. So this is a person who has been with you through so much of life. My husband and I have this summer known each other for 20 years, been together for 20 years, married for 11. So I very much relate. And there are still so many times in marriage that you're like, oh, I'm not saying what I need. Oh, I'm not like totally like being
Totally.
myself. And I think the piece of like your injury, needing to rely on him, was there a moment that like you consciously recognized yourself being more vulnerable, or was it like total band-aid ripped off, like crisis mode, and then seeing him show up for you?
I think probably seeing him show up for me gave me the safety to be more vulnerable.
Hmm.
And, because I went from literally like it happened so fast, this injury, and then all of a sudden being like, I can't walk, I can't function, I'm in pain. And so I went from, being very capable, very independent my entire life. I think even proving to myself just how capable and independent I was. I'd carry like 150 pounds of snowboard luggage behind me through the airport, walking with prosthetic legs for years. And throw everything in my car and just do things myself. And I went from that to not being able to function at all. Literally, like wouldn't even be able to get up to go brush my teeth. It hurt too bad to even do that. So Daniel would have to like bring me my toothbrush as I sat on the couch and brush my teeth. And but he was amazing. He jumped right into gear, and he'd cook for me and he'd take care of me and made sure I was good and comfortable. And I think that allowed me to be a little bit more comfortable putting my walls down and realizing like it's okay to need help. And actually, when I needed help and I asked for it and he was there, it just made me realize how much closer that brought us. And so it's interesting. It's like, and I think I mentioned this in the book, but it's in moments of weakness, who knew that we could be so strong? And that's really what I felt, personally, but also together,
Hmm.
because this was, life was, if life has crashed down, it crashed down. I wasn't speaking, I wasn't making money, like everything was on hold.
Hmm.
So we weren't necessarily in a great spot, but at the same time, um, we were there for each other, and allowing him in allowed me to feel, I think, the safety to just be more true of how I was feeling, what I was experiencing, and knowing I was safe, allowed me to be more vulnerable, allowed our relationship to grow closer together. And then just made me think about vulnerability as a whole. And even when it would come to like my social media audience, I mean, these are, people I don't even know in person, but I would I started kind of showing up more vulnerably every day and kind of sharing this experience of what I was going through. I would share the fears and share all the stuff that scared me, and the amount of people who showed up not only for me, but who it then gave permission for them to show up in a way where they could share their stories. That made me realize we're all going through stuff, and we all need each other. And when we can be vulnerable and open up about open up about our weaknesses, open up about the things that make us feel vulnerable or embarrassed or whatever it may be. Like you realize that there's so many other people who feel the same, and that's what allows you to connect. And so yeah, that's why I wanted to write that book or the chapter on vulnerability, because that's absolutely a tool for building relationships, and it just became a very healing tool for me.
Yeah. And I think it's the emotional version of losing your legs and being in a place where you had to look at your life and be like, what do I want it to be? The vulnerability, I thought of it as like ego being a muscle, that like to build a muscle, you have to break it down. You have to break the muscle fibers, then you let them heal. And the vulnerability piece is the workout to then like build the ego and build the relationship on the other side and know that it's going to be okay. So I think the application of that concept, like you said, other people watch you be vulnerable and therefore they can do the same, is really similar to what you described your tools as being. Like they're useful in crisis, but they're also useful like in the day-to-day. Like I had the most delightful interaction with a Walgreens cashier like 2 weeks ago. And it was just like, I could have just said, thanks, bye, but it was like this moment of human connection that wasn't like full vulnerability, but it's just like, I'm going to be a human right now and recognize like what that person just said and meet her right there. And we both laughed and it made my day better. And it was just like the
Totally.
smallest, most amazing thing. Yeah.
I
So
totally
fun.
agree. I had a similar thing last week too, where I had this driver who picked me up. I had a really rough morning and I canceled something that I was really looking forward to doing, but I just did not feel okay to do it. And I canceled it and I felt so bad because the driver had to wait for me for 2 hours because then I needed to go to the airport and this whole thing. But when I got in the car with them, I told them, I said, I am so sorry that I had to cancel on you and that you just sat there for 2 hours. And he goes, are you kidding me? He goes, I needed it so bad. I was sitting on the beach with the wind in my hair. I've been so busy. And he was like, you have no idea how much I needed that 2 hour moment. And we ended up in the car listening to music. He took me for frozen yogurt and before going to the airport. And as we were sitting there, he was this older guy, but as we were sitting there eating yogurt, he goes, this is what life's about. We're always so busy doing like going from point A to point B, but it's like these in between moments of just like connecting with each other, hanging out, talking, meeting someone new. He's like, this is really what makes life so special. And I could not agree more. And my nervous system was completely calm. I felt so grateful for that moment. And it's, it just reminds me how important human connection is. And we miss it because we are like going to the grocery store, checking out, going to work, whatever it may be. It's like we're always going places, but it's all those in between moments that I think are actually where the fulfillment of life is at.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. Well, I could talk to you for hours. I want to be respectful of your time. And there's so much more that I did want to say, but I want to like show you how much impact that you've had in the chat if you're not following along. So Judy shared a story about her nephew who discovered adaptive golf recently, like while you were talking about the little girl in Italy. And yeah, loves competition, of course, but he also very much appreciates meeting athletes from around the world and the opportunity to introduce others to the possibilities that exist for them as well, which we both agree with
uh,
wholeheartedly. Yeah.
I love
And
that. I know I saw
mhm,
that one up above here. I was trying to kind of read at the same time. Um, but it's so cool. Yeah, I mean the
mhm,
community, the athletic community, whether it's para or not, is just, I mean, it's amazing. So I'm so happy that there's opportunities for
yeah,
for other people to get involved.
me too. And then Amanda says she'd love to compete again, but doesn't think there's a place in sport for people like her yet. She suffers from long COVID and struggles with bad fatigue. And do you think there's a way for the chronic illness and disability community to participate in the future? What steps do we take to get there? And I can't think of, I know you're part of the disability community as well, but being a pioneer in para snowboarding, like who else to answer this question but Amy Purdy? Mhm.
I know. I think I don't know. I don't know what would be accepted in the Paralympic Games or not, but I think coming together as a community, if you can reach out to people and network with other people who are in your same situation, maybe same sport, if it's not the same sport, just other people who want to be um, in sports or athletic who are dealing with chronic illness, just coming together as a small group. I mean, just to even do little meetups or
Hmm.
like, hey, we're going to go play pickleball today, or hey, we're going to go play golf today. Like that's really important, and that's where it starts. And really, that's where it started with Paralympic snowboard. I just would meet up with friends. Like we were reaching out to each other. This is when the internet was brand new. It was like AOL or something. And we would I would reach out to anyone I could who I found who had a prosthetic leg who maybe snowboarded. Like I'd read an article about somebody in New York or something who snowboarded and had a prosthetic. I'd reach out to that person. We created this little community and we would just go snowboarding together just so that we could learn from each other. And that's how it started. Then we started to realize just how many of us there were. And then we started to realize, oh, just how good everybody could ride with prosthetic legs. And then we're like, well, how is this not a Paralympic sport? And it just kind of collected more and more and more people. But it really starts with just reaching out and networking with other people who are in your same situation who want to meet up and just start there. And then you start to realize how many people are out there, and you just never know where that can go.
Yeah, build the snowball. And in para athletics, there are quite a few athletes who have those hidden disabilities, right? The chronic illnesses, and do compete in, maybe events that like you're not thinking about right now, but they're definitely suffering in relative silence with similar issues and have talked about it enough that you can find those people and reach out, and it's a small enough community to make those connections. So encourage you to
Exactly. And
do
yeah,
that.
because like you said, there are a lot of Paralympians who deal with, multiple different invisible disabilities sometimes at the same time. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's kind of just like I said, it's like being an advocate for yourself and your community by you might have to be the one to reach out and pull people together.
Mhm.
If there's not meetups or something like that happening where you can all get together, like you might have to be the one that puts something together and sees who shows up. Like that's really how, like you said, the snowball gets rolling.
And you are very likely not alone. So once you do it, you'll be met by similar people. Well, Amy, you are fantastic. I think the reason we couldn't get all the way into all of the tools is because you ooze positivity. And one of my questions was about like whether you've ever been labeled as toxically positive. I definitely have, and I do not get that from you. And I think like the reason that that's so clear is if anyone hasn't read this book, the actionable things like the admission of difficulty followed by the action steps that lead to happiness, that lead to forward momentum, that lead to all of that, like practicing belief in yourself and then proving it to yourself is exactly
Yeah.
what is the opposite of toxic positivity. It's positivity with like reason behind it. And that's why it's just there. We couldn't get all the way into this stuff, but I fully, fully recommend everybody read this book. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And yes, that is something that I try to be aware of. I'll be honest, I notice it in myself at times. I think, gosh, you know, I think sometimes people can see what I'm doing or how I'm talking and it sounds easy. So I don't want that. And that's why I wrote this book. It's like this is something we all can do. We all can live a good life, but there are all these hard moments and decisions along the way. And that's why I wanted to put it in this book. And I actually have to remind myself of that sometimes too, because sometimes I'll say something like, well, I was just really grateful to be alive. But then people will be like, but how? You lost your legs. Like, how were you so grateful to be alive? And I'm like, hold on, let me break it down into like these little things that like I went through the same stuff and go through every single day the same stuff that we all go through, guaranteed when it comes to emotions, right? Like losing my legs, I guarantee felt the same way emotionally to me as it would to most people, right? But I think it's what comes next. That's what's so defining. It's like, okay, how do what I leaned on for myself is these little like mental shifts that of like, I can look at it this way or I can look at it this way. Like that would completely change my own mind on how I can move forward. So it's not that things, yeah, I think people look at they'll look at athletes and stuff and you kind of skip over the hard stuff. That's why it is really important to share the challenging stuff as well. And I do try to do that as much as possible on social media, just showing up with my community. I'm actually going deeper with my community with a book club that starts this week and it goes for 4 weeks. And it's just to dive into like those deeper stories as well. Because I think those are the most transformative. We all go through adversity. There's nothing more human than adversity. And hearing how somebody else gets through their adversity can help you get through yours. And that's really why I wanted to write this book. So,
Mhm.
anyways, thank you so much for having me
You're
on and
so
for supporting
welcome.
me and just the book and everybody who's here too. It's so fun seeing everybody in the chat.
Yeah, I agree completely. This was such a blast. I am absolutely honored to help tell the story that you're already telling so well. And there is one question from Arden. I loved how you actually left the book in the middle of your healing process. Like we had a hint of the future, but it wasn't exactly like peachy quite yet. And I got to see you walk on stage at the Hall of Fame induction for the USOPC. It is housed here at the museum last summer. And I'd been following you on Instagram. I didn't know all the details because the book wasn't out yet, but like I watched you walk on two prosthetics onto the stage to introduce like fellow Hall of Famers. So are you comfortable walking now? How's it going? What's the rest of the journey?
I am still on this journey. I have a prosthetic appointment tomorrow, hoping to fix this spot to make it more comfortable. So it's a continual journey, but I think that is also what it is. A, in life, B, being someone with a disability. It is always a continual journey, and it just becomes part of the process. At this point, I've accepted my journey to a degree, but I'm also constantly trying to get more comfortable so I can walk even further.
Hmm.
And that continues to happen. So I mean, now, when I first went through this journey, I could like walk like when I first got my prosthetic after all this injury, I could walk from my bedroom to my kitchen, and that was it because my calf would cramp and it would cramp because my prosthetic wasn't comfortable. It's been it has been a journey. It has been challenging. In fact, the whole chapter about perseverance, it's like still where I'm at. But one little step at a time. I mean, it's been kind of, I guess it's like a metaphor for my whole journey, which is like
Yeah.
trying to figure out a way, taking little baby steps, trying to figure out just one little inch, even getting a little inch of further ahead is still forward motion and gets you somewhere, right? Instead of staying still. And so that's where I'm at right now is just continuing to work on my leg, getting it as comfortable as I can, um, so that I can walk even further, you know, get on my snowboard and do all the stuff that I hope to do again, but I'm
Hmm.
also okay if I don't do again. I've come to terms with that as well.
Yeah. The piece with what is part of the book toward the end was so powerful for me. And we're gonna kick it back to Annie. Like again, we're gonna keep talking if I let us keep talking, and I love it. But the piece part with what it is, like just accepting the reality, and then you have your miracle angiogenesis, and it's so cool, and like everyone needs to read the book. But in Tokyo in 2021, I didn't make a fourth Olympic final, like 4 times in a row. No finals for me. Like just devastated. So sad. And this piece washed over me that like I love this anyway. It's great. And so to just like bring it back to sport and the Olympics and Paralympics, like it was just this moment of like, I'm not here for that. I'm here to connect with these teammates, travel the world, like love my international competitors and just like see a different version of that. And then in sport, it got better anyway. Like there was this like acceptance, and then I don't need anything else. I'm good. And I can keep chipping away at the dream that I've like always had or a new dream. And I just resonate so
Exactly.
much with bounce forward. Like I'm not the same as I was. I never will be. My left knee will never be the same.
Yeah.
And I can do other stuff. And that's really exciting.
I
Yeah.
love that. That was a perfect example of bounce forward. It is. It's like, yeah, you can continue to work towards something, accept where you're at, take everything from your past, and allow all of that to make you into I guess, the kind of wholest version of yourself today.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go back to who you were. I don't think any of us really, we talk about going back to like, oh, I don't know, a time when we felt better, whatever it may be. But like, do you really want to go back to who you were? Like, so much more being who you are today. So I think it's just embracing that. And that's really what Bounce Forward's all about.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to watch you bounce forward into the next thing. And I was just honored to have this conversation. So thank you to everyone for joining. And thank you to
Yes.
Amy.
Thank you, everybody. I know
Yeah.
I know someone on here asked my IG. I'll just tell you guys really quick just so we can stay in touch. But it's Amy Purdy Girl. Amy Purdy Girl,
Mhm.
GURL. Yeah.